Good morning, Justice Warriors. How are you guys today? Are you still here, Michael McAllister? So nice for you to drop by and lovely to see you. I see that was like 20 minutes ago, so I don't know if you're still around or not. I think I did change it to at one point. I think I had it set for 11:30 and then I pushed it back to 11:45 because you know how it is. I had to eat, clean my glasses and all that other good stuff. And I did not clean my glasses. There's my little glasses cleaner. So everything is all blurry. And I didn't text any of my mods. So maybe I will try to do that too as we're just getting started. How are you today? How's my mic? How's my audio? It's been so nice since the cat ate my mic cord, and then I borrowed my son's big, expensive professional mic. Look, Sherry's here and Jackie Bushable. Woohoo, you guys. Thanks for coming in. So I don't know if anybody was in the live yesterday when I didn't have a single peep the entire like hour plus. I'm thinking I probably hit a little square that said that nobody could actually comment or something like that because nobody did. And that's never happened for that long of a period, except for when I've made that mistake once or twice in the past. So let me finish cleaning all the smear stuff off my glasses and then I can see what you guys are saying. I think I got most of it. Okay. Nice to see you. Always lovely to be here with you guys. Sherry says, hi there, Michael McAllister. So, how many of you guys watch Tyson Draper? You guys probably know exactly who he is, right? I don't need to remind you, but I will for anybody who doesn't know. He is the guy who got that video footage of Barry Morphew showing him where the cat dragged Suzanne Morphew uphill and all that weird stuff. So that was his first YouTube video. It probably got like 1 million views, and then he's kind of been laying low mostly ever since. I think he said in the video that he dropped last night that he hasn't dropped a video for about a year, and it's just nice to hear from him. I think he's one of those truly authentic and positive people that I really appreciate. There's like a little chain moving and making a tapping noise. I don't know if you guys could hear that. This mic is so good, you probably could. So anyway, I will put a link to Tyson Draper's latest video in my description. Let's get the ball rolling. There's so much to talk about. It was kind of good that there weren't comments yesterday because I had a lot that I wanted to cover. And it's so hard to have that balance. Like, I love interacting with you guys. That's why I come on live. It keeps it so much more fresh and keeps me on my toes. I never know where the conversation is going to go. And so when you guys aren't here, like yesterday, and nobody needs to feel bad for that. I probably made the mistake, but even if it wasn't me, that's cool too. We all have our lives. We're all busy. And it could be part of the shadow banning, not to be paranoid, but maybe it just wasn't being promoted the normal way, right? Maybe nobody could tell that I was on. That's a possibility too. Seems I may have watched him just lately. Yeah, Jackie Bushable, if you watch Tyson Draper, it would have been like in the last 14 hours, I think. Maybe 15 hours ago was when he dropped that last video. And like I said, I don't think he had made one for almost an entire year. Hey, Fred Field, what's going on? I highlighted that. So please make sure you're still subscribed if you are subscribed. And if you're not, please consider just hitting that sub up button. It is much appreciated. Share a video of mine if you'd be so kind, and turn on your notification bell to ring a ding ding. That's a line from Brandam 3000, Drinking in LA. You guys know that song? I'll put a link to it in the description. It's a fabulous song. It's the only song I really know of theirs, even though I got their whole CD. And I've listened to the whole CD a bunch of times, but that's the only song that stands out. There's the thumb, the creepy thumb. I was online shopping Cyber Monday. Oh, maybe that's what everybody was doing. That's understandable. But yeah, because there wasn't a single comment, and I think the video was like well over an hour, like maybe an hour and 15 or 20. I'm pretty sure that I must have hit a wrong button because I was being a little like lazy and haphazard when I put it together, which I'm usually not. I'm usually very specific and careful when you're setting up your live, but it's also routine that I was just kind of like, not really, you know, being attentive as I usually am. So let me do my disclaimer. Everything I say is simply my opinion for the sake of hoping to start a conversation and open up a discussion and learn something, be educational. All my videos are made for YouTube. It's an entertainment platform. I've been on this platform for coming up on 2.5 years. So in a couple of months, it'll be 2.5 years. It was good. I listened to the whole thing. Oh, mine or Tyson Draper's, if you want to specify. And yeah, I wanted to talk about his work and where he's coming from, because it was interesting. The message that he had at the end of his video, that he was like, this is what I want people to hear, is very similar to the message that I often try to put out there as my number one message. Oh, thank you, Jackie. That's so nice. I appreciate that. That his thing, and I did the wrong one, but I'll just leave that up there. His thing was just like, find your voice and use it. And, that's very consistent and in line with what I like to say when I'm giving myself and you guys all this great advice to stay hydrated and well nourished and blah, blah, blah. Just be yourself. Like my mom used to say, be yourself. Everybody else is already taken, which I thought was super cute. But it's true. Just being you. Nobody is like you. And I don't feel like any of us get encouraged enough to just be ourselves. We get encouraged to just kind of go with the flow and, not be ourselves, really. That being ourselves is like an inconvenience or something. And it's really all that we've got. And the coolest thing about having a YouTube channel is you really find your voice, which I didn't foresee that. Anyway, I felt like Tyson and I are right along those same lines with all that. So I didn't tell you guys yesterday about my review of that Rolling Stones movie with Brian Jones, the one that just came out last year. Was it Nick Broomfield who produced it? Anyway, it was phenomenal. It's called The Rolling Stones and Brian Jones, I think. There's a couple of them. I have Roku, so I just looked up Rolling Stones and Brian Jones, and like 3 things came up. And this one was one that I could stream for free, I think on Pluto or something like that. There was another one that I couldn't stream for free, so I didn't bother watching that. And then there was also like a little mini documentary that was like an hour long, but the 2 movies were like closer to 2 hours long. And I know a lot about Brian Jones and the Rolling Stones. I found out so much more. So, I've always been kind of suspicious of what caused him to pass away. He was found drowned in a swimming pool. I think it was around July 3rd of 1969. I'm pretty sure that's the date. And he'd already been kicked out of the band. His girlfriend, Anita Pallenberg, had dumped him for Keith Richards. And man, she was a piece of work. I mean, Brian Jones was a piece of work. They all were, but especially Brian Jones. I mean, even though rock stars like live life in the fast lane, you still have to take really good care of yourself to be living in the fast lane, or you end up like so many of them. The guy from T-Rex, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Brian Jones. You can throw Kurt Cobain in there, whatever it was that took his life. I mean, that whole 27 Club, right? Amy Winehouse and Mia Zapata from the Gits. I think Bob Johnson is in there, Robert Johnson. But Brian Jones and Hendrix were hanging out a lot at the end of their time on this earth, which I didn't realize that they were friends. I went down a fascinating rabbit hole because one of Brian Jones's 6 baby mamas that he had before he passed away, 6 baby mamas that he knew of. There's at least one for sure confirmed that he knew nothing about, that was like a one night stand. And that's come to the public's knowledge more recently, like in the past 20 years. Anyway, there are probably a lot more than that, is my guess. So Linda, who married Donovan, Donovan's an amazing Scottish musician, and they got married 54 years ago. She had Brian Jones's baby when she was 17 years old. And then he was extremely unthoughtful, the way he was with pretty much all of his girlfriends. But then Donovan and her got together, and then they broke up, and then Donovan wrote that song. It's one of my favorite songs of all time. If you guys don't know it, or if you do, Sunshine Superman, one of the best songs under the sun, as far as I'm concerned. He wrote that song for her. They were both dating other people. They were living like on opposite ends of the earth, literally. And he had decided that he wanted to marry her, and it was his way of proposing to her. And they got married shortly after. They both dumped the people that they were with, which, sad for the people that they were with, but it worked out. 54 years later, they're still married at like 77 and 78 years old, Linda and Donovan. Anyway, I just love trivia like that. I love knowing these things. So Anita Pallenberg had 3 kids with Keith Richards after she dumped Brian Jones for Keith Richards. And I didn't realize that one of their babies passed away when he was 3 months old. So Keith was on tour, and she was at home with the 4-year-old son and the 3-month-old son. And I think that there was someone else in the house with the 3 of them when it happened, like maybe a cook, a chef, or somebody like that. And then I think the baby was found in its crib and, was considered SIDS, sudden infant death. And super sad, absolutely destroys people's lives. And then especially if they were like high or drunk when that happened. I mean, that can happen to anybody, anytime. Babies sometimes just stop breathing, which is why you have the baby monitor, and, you check your baby and make sure they're still breathing often. And it's not to say that it's anyone's fault when that happens. So, I mean, it's horrible and tragic. And then they had a 3rd child. They had a little girl. And then Anita Pallenberg, she passed away a few years ago at the age of 75 from hepatitis C complications after having a really long sobriety stint, because, her and Brian and Keith and all of them, they were junkies straight up. And so she had a long sobriety stint from the 80s until maybe sometime in the 2010s. And then she relapsed, and then she got sober again before she passed away at the age of 75. And then I don't know if all that trivia interests you guys. Keith Richards also married Patty Hansen, who I think also may have dated Mick Jagger and Brian Jones. So there was like 3 of these women that dated all 3 of them. Anita Pallenberg, I'd say Sally Hansen. I might be getting her first name wrong. Patty Hansen. Yeah, Patty Hansen. And then Patty had 3 kids with Keith too. So he has 5 surviving kids. And then the 3rd one that dated all 3 of them back in the day when, most women would have killed to date even one of them, let alone all 3, was Marianne Faithfull. So like I said, I love all that trivia. The thing that convinced me in this movie that maybe Brian's passing away was truly accidental and not foul play was just knowing the temperature of the swimming pool water that he allegedly fell asleep in. So I think it was in England or somewhere like that where it's really cool weather, and it was an outdoor pool, and they kept it above 90 degrees, like I think closer to 100 degrees, but still, even 90 degrees is really warm for a swimming pool. That's like bath water. Like I really can't take it over 84. It's just not refreshing. It's just kind of gross. But it's like a really tight window of temperature. Like it needs to be at least 80 or it's freezing cold to me. But some people like it above 84. I don't. I like it right around 82 or 83. I'm really specific with my temperatures because, I used to swim a lot. Anyway, if you're swimming fast and the water's cold, then you're okay. Or if you're not swimming fast, if you're just like, not swimming and not moving, then you want the temperature a little bit higher. Anyway, the theory was always that he fell asleep in the pool because he was high and intoxicated. And that never made sense to me until I found out how freaking warm they kept the pool. And then I thought, okay, could easily be, who knows? It's just very sad. Again, he was 27. I wasn't sure when I mentioned it a couple days ago. I was like, maybe he was younger than that. But nope, he's one of the 27 club, like I said, with Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Amy Winehouse, Jim Morrison, Kurt Cobain, Kristen Pfaff, and Mia Zapata, and Robert Johnson. Help me out if I'm forgetting anybody that is, super famous rock star that passed away at 27, because that's what they call the 27 Club. I've done a few videos on that over the years. So anyway, let's get on with it. You guys, let me just dive straight into some cray. You know who Pete Hegseth is? The guy that the president-elect has appointed to his cabinet, who was a weekend correspondent for Fox News, who's been accused of many NSAs, and even his mother wrote him an email telling him that he treated women really poorly and that he needed to get it together. Pete Hegseth. So I was watching one of my political news channels, and they were talking about Pete Hegseth and how he was part of this church run by Brian Wilson, this church that was started by this weirdo. Brian Wilson. So Brian Wilson, you probably know, that's the name of the guy from the Beach Boys, right? But it's also the name of the guy from this fundamentalist church in Moscow, Idaho, that I first learned about in the Idaho 4 case. So if you're familiar with the Idaho 4 case, if you're familiar with this weird church thing, Brian Wilson and his sons had all kinds of trouble with the law in Moscow. During, I think, COVID, they were putting up all these stickers all over town that were, controversial with anti-masking and stuff. And they called it Stickergate because it became this big battle between the church and the state, basically, between Brian Wilson's fundamentalist church and the Moscow police department. And this Brian Wilson puts together a lot of music videos and videos in general, and they pretty much all have him burning the place down, burning things down. Like that's his theme, that's his go-to. So he's very extreme, and Pete Hegseth is part of his congregation, I guess. Like, I don't know that he's part of the congregation in Moscow, Idaho, but he's part of that church that's run by Brian Wilson and his sons. So his sons got into it with the local police department a few years ago, and it blew up over the stickers. They called it Stickergate. I think I already said that. And they made a kind of cheeky video about, there's no stickers. I don't see any stickers, and they're standing around like stop signs that have all these stickers on the poles, and they're like, what stickers, right? And then in the end, the Wilson brothers, and maybe their dad too, were suing the Moscow Police Department, and they were requesting all of the body cam footage, and they were told that there was no body cam footage from, I think it was like a little altercation, like a physical altercation that one of the Wilson brothers got into with one of the people in the Moscow PD. I don't think it was like a big deal, but it was a thing. Anyway, they were told that there was no body cam, and then later, maybe like a couple of years later, possibly, the body cam footage surfaced. So that is a big deal. If Moscow Police Department lied and said that they didn't have body cam footage that they had. And that kind of thing should not happen. Like, that is definitely a Brady Giglio valid complaint. So Brian Wilson and his sons have an active, or had anyway, 2 years ago when the Idaho 4 happened, they had an active Brady Giglio against the Moscow Police Department. And it might even be that one guy, Mowry, Sergeant Mowry, Detective Mowry, that they say, the department says, is like their expert in IT forensics. And I don't know, he's the one I was talking about the other day, but I couldn't remember his name. It's Mowry. Maybe there's an E in there. Anyway, and what's his first name? I'm really quizzing myself now. I can't think of it. Mowry. Goober Mowry. Anyway, I think he was the one that they filed the Brady Giglio complaint against. And then he was also the key person doing the forensics of all the electronic data in the Idaho 4, I think. Is it Dwayne Mowry? Anyway, I've got my phone here. I could look it up. Let's see if it works. Let's see if it's gonna do its thing today, or if it's gonna have hiccups. Detective Mowry, and that's Moscow PD. Lawrence Mowry. It's Mowry. Okay. So the U.S. Secret Service, you guys, this is hilarious. This is big country news. It's the first thing that pops up. U.S. Secret Service recognizes Moscow Police Department detective, USSS, formally recognized Moscow Police Department detective Lawrence Mowry for achievement in the field. That's all it says in the beginning part. Let's see what else it says. The field of digital forensics and cybercrime investigation this past Monday, April 1st, 2024. Detective Mowry was honored in person by USS Spokane office's resident agent in charge. Interesting. You want to see a picture of him? He looks very different because he had extremely, can you see this? Sorry. Let's see if I can do it without the glare. No, you can't really see it too good. So that's him in the short sleeves. In the Moscow case, he had very dark hair, like a dark beard. All of his hair was very brown. So maybe he's grayed from simple age, maybe from stress. I mean, stress will do that to you. It can turn your hair gray overnight. So, and I meant to let at least one of my mods know that I'm live. Just in case. And let's see. So, yeah. Should we talk about Hannah Kobayashi? You guys probably heard all about the LAPD making an announcement last night that they knew that she had gone to Mexico on her own accord a couple weeks ago. So, head spinning. They say that they have good reason for being secretive about the information, that if in the event that she was being followed or something, that she was trying to get away from somebody, that they didn't want to give her location away. And I watched a really good true crime rocket science about it this morning that I'll put a link to in the description. My hat's a little off. I couldn't find a backwards hat today. It took me a really long time to find another one of these backwards hats. So anyway, it's squeezing my brain. Nick from True Crime Rocket Science had a lot of good opinions, I thought, about the Hannah Koyaanisqatsi case. I think it's Koyasabi. Oh man, it's such a mouthful of a last name. I apologize. Koyasaki? I like Koyaanisqatsi if you ever saw that movie. Anyway, we'll just call her Hannah K, right? Kind of like trying to say the G family in the Idaho 4 case. I often just call them the G family, or Gonzo, right? That's Kaylee's dad has a nickname, Gonzo, but a lot of people that know them call them like Mrs. G, Mr. G, all that good stuff. Now I'm trying to, I don't want to try to say it. I have this thing where once I fumble a word or a name, I can't ever like unfumble it. It's like the wires get all crossed in my brain and they'll never uncross again. So I'm just going to have to go with Hannah K. Anyway, I have my own theories about what might be happening. And one of the things that Nick from True Crime Rocket Science said that I thought was brilliant, because, timing is everything anywhere in life, but especially in true crime. You really need to take the timing into consideration. That's a huge amount, a vast amount of evidence right there. So she flew in to LAX November 8th. The election day was the 5th. I think by the 8th, it was pretty confirmed that it was the way it was. And there were and are a lot of people. I think that the statistic online is like as much as like 20% of all Democrats are likely to move out of the country. I don't know. That seemed pretty high to me. But I was one of those prior to the election. But then on election day, when it started to go that way, I was like, I'm going to dig my heels in. Not doing that. So this is my home country. It's going to remain my home country. I will fight tooth and nail for what I think is right. And, living in another country could be super cool, but I live here and I'm a homebody. I like to grow where I'm planted. Basically, I'm not as into traveling as I used to be when I was younger. So what Nick said from True Crime Rocket Science is that maybe she left the country because she was upset about the election. We don't know if she was happy or unhappy or, not moved one direction or the other with the election. But I thought it was a really good thing to keep in mind that could be that she had told people at the border when she crossed over on foot with her passport that she wanted to basically live off grid. When they asked her for a contact phone number, she said she didn't have her phone and she wasn't planning on having her phone, basically. So that's, to me, very interesting. To me, it still doesn't rule out that that trafficking might be a thing and that she might have been trying to escape from that. I can't help but be really curious about her ex-boyfriend that was on the same plane with her, who made it to the destination in New York City. She definitely was trying to get off of that plane or get off of the flight itinerary in Los Angeles with no intention of going to New York. I mean, allegedly she was on standby, but she never stood by. She was like running all over town, and hanging out at Skid Row kind of makes me think that there could be trafficking involved of substances or the other type. But I just think it's really curious that it's an ex-boyfriend. I think it's really curious, all the secrecy. I go back to again and again, ever since this case came to light, how come there's never been any information about what anyone in her family does for work? We were told that she was a fire dancer, a DJ, and an artist, a photographer. But unless you have a well-established business, none of those things are going to generate much of an income, if any. I mean, usually people end up spending money on those types of hobbies, essentially, to hit pay dirt with being a DJ, a fire dancer, or an artist is unusual, uncommon. And apparently she had all this money to pay for this expensive hotel room in New York City. So where did the money come from? And it's usually mentioned what type of work people do when we get these true crime cases. So why is that information left out? And with the family asking for all this help, having a GoFundMe, keeping the GoFundMe going, even when they knew that she was voluntarily, in Mexico. So basically, fraud with the GoFundMe, which is illegal. It doesn't get, there's not much teeth to the laws around that, but it is illegal. Fraud is fraud. And GoFundMe tries really hard to keep a handle on that so that it doesn't tarnish their name and their reputation. So, in a lot of ways, her case reminds me of the Kylie Rodney case. And especially, does her case end with her going to Mexico? Because Kylie's case kind of might have started with her going to Mexico. And again, there could be the trafficking involved of both types, the substances and the other that I don't like to mention, really don't like to mention. He's not familiar to me, Sherry says. Hey, squirrels. What's up, girlfriend? Good to see you, Fred Fields. And did you see there was a sighting of her in Mexico? Right. So, yeah, it's all over the freaking news last night that the Los Angeles Police Department made the big reveal that they've known about this for a couple of weeks and that they didn't want to say anything. In case she was trying to get away from someone, they didn't want to be pointing that someone in the right direction, basically, is what I caught. I watched a bunch of different ones. Bubbly Waters, what's up, girlfriend? It's been forever. Lovely to see you. If you guys don't know Bubbly Waters' channel, I can't imagine that you don't. Check it out. She's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Hi there. Saw you were live and wanted to say hi. Also, fire dancer reminds me of Einen. Okay, Bubbly. I want to keep up with all the comments, but let me go straight back to, in case you didn't catch it when I was just talking about Brian Wilson a minute ago, the guy who formed the Fundamentalist Church in Moscow, Idaho, the 71-year-old guy whose sons got into it with the Moscow Police Department. And it seems that this unsavory douche, Pete Hegseth, is part of that fundamentalist congregation that Brian Wilson is the leader of. I was fascinated because I was just watching this political channel. They were talking about Brian Wilson, and I was like, wait, I know that name. That's not just the name of a beach boy. That's the name of the guy in Idaho. And of course, Brian's a common name. Wilson's a common name. I'm not thinking that they're one and the same necessarily, but I looked it all up and it's all over the internet that, yeah, it is one and the same. Pete Hegseth is in line with this whack job Brian Wilson. So the whole Handmaid's Tale thing is creepy AF, you guys. That's what I can't get over with Kylie's case, with Idaho 4, with these cabinet picks, with So gross. So gross. Anyway, so I don't know if you caught that yet, Bubbly. The Hegseth, Brian Wilson. If you know who Pete Hegseth is, he was the weekend Fox News correspondent that the president-elect appointed to the cabinet to be like the Secretary of Defense, I think. Kind of scary. I mean, he did serve in the National Guard, but he also, the only other thing that really stands out on his resume is working for Fox News. And then he was uninvited to Biden's inauguration because he was on a list of radicals that were potentially dangerous. So we'll just leave it at that, right? Didn't hear about this. Is Brian Doug's brother? Doug is the son, right? I think Brian Wilson is the dad. Am I getting my wires crossed? Is it Doug Wilson is the dad? So is he part of the 2025 report? The plan man, Project 2025. Let's see about. I'm going to look up Brian Wilson. Make sure I'm not confusing my names because I think he's the 71-year-old that started. And let's see. So he founded this radical fundamentalist church. Yeah, he's the 71-year-old. No, Douglas Wilson. You got it. You got it. Douglas James Wilson. Okay. Thank you, Bubbly. I'm so glad you're here. So how did I mess this up? Let me see. Maybe it was Doug Wilson was who they talked about with let's see, Doug Wilson's children, his sons. Thank you so much for catching me on that. I do not like being off in my info. Doug Wilson's sons, Moscow, Idaho. So, oh, is he the uncle? Because the pastor of this church is Douglas Wilson, the father of Nathan Wilson. Okay, so Roy and Seamus are his grandsons, it looks like. Okay. And then the thing with Hegseth, were they saying Doug Wilson and I just got my wires crossed? Because it was definitely the same thing. Hegseth connection. Again, I apologize for not having my facts clear. So it's a Christian national church that aims to turn America into, this is the Tennessee Lookout. This is the first thing that comes up. Idaho-based Christian national church that aims to turn America into a theocracy. Hegseth is a member of the Tennessee congregation affiliated with Christ Church, a controversial congregation in Moscow, Idaho. So, yeah. Christ Church is led by Pastor Doug Wilson. Okay, I just threw Brian Wilson in there because I'm a dope. Because I'm always thinking about music, and maybe Brian Jones, because I've been all obsessed with Brian Jones the last couple of days. Anyway, yeah, thanks again for checking me on that. So it's the CREC, and the congregations are in nearly all 50 states and several foreign countries. Huh. I wonder if there's anything to do with JP Diddy and the CREC. Do you guys know? I'm just going to Google that real quick. I don't know. There's too many JP Millers. I'm going to set this down and not worry about it for the moment. Anyway, Doug turned 70 this year, 71 actually. Yeah. So, so to answer your question, Sherry, Bubbly Waters got us straightened out on that. Not Brian Wilson, but Doug Wilson. So yeah, I just imagined the Brian part. Sorry. It's just really glad to get it ironed out, on the spot rather than having to do all the damage control in the comments and the description and, follow up over the next few days with my coming videos. If I'm even confident enough to make any more after that huge faux pas. No, I'm just kidding. It's okay to make mistakes. I mean, it's how we learn, right? So Doug Wilson. Yeah, I really thought his name was the match to the guy in the Beach Boys this whole time. I mean, that guy's got a really interesting life story too. Maybe we'll go and do a deep dive on that someday because he hung out with Charles Manson. Charles Manson and him wrote music together. Neil Young hung out with Charles Manson too, you guys. I hate to say that because I love Neil Young. But he's definitely got the Charles Manson eyes. I have to admit it. As much as I love Neil Young, he definitely got them eyes. Yeah. And, as you probably know, Charles Manson wrote maybe good music that he was trying to get into the music scene with, which what took him down that dark, dark path of all the mayhem that ensued. All right. Back on track. Anyway, don't like to think about that guy. I like to think about you guys. We're already at 42 minutes. Man, time just flies when my friends are here. All right. So it's so weird that we'd see your live right now when you were talking about this, isn't it? I know I haven't seen you in forever. I've made a couple of comments on a couple of your things real recent. Do you have a link to that read? I will put a link in the description a little bit later today, Bubbly. And you can feel free to email me too. My email is justicetooz@gmail.com. And anybody who wants to email me is free to justicetooz@gmail.com. And yeah. All right. It does, woman. What a great catch. You're a smart woman. I love it when I catch these things like that. I just happened to know Doug Wilson's name, that I just happened to be watching. I think it was on the Pacman show. If you're familiar with David Pacman, he's one of these political channels that I watch a fair amount these days. I think it was him that was talking about Doug Wilson, Pete Hegseth, and Doug Wilson. And I was like, wait a second, is it the same? And yes, it was one and the same. Everything I was looking up on Pete Hegseth pointed right to the church in Idaho, except just now finding out that he's part of the Tennessee congregation. Because I think Hegseth is from like Minnesota or one of those M states. And yeah, anyway, he's still in the running. So him and Gates were both, cabinet selections around the same time, and then Gates dropped out because of all the heat, and Hegseth hasn't dropped out yet, but we'll see if he does or not. Man, what a nightmare some of these selections are. Like the Kennedy dude, I mean, he's absolutely gross. He's just disgusting, in my opinion. And again, the way they all treat women is so sickening. And we do not want to have that continue, the assaults, the abuse, the silencing of women. I mean, there's so much of that already. We need to fight against that. That's so much of what my channel is all about. And, trying to give voices to the people whose voices were stolen from them, like Maddie Soto, Kylie Rodney, Micah Miller, the three young women in the University of Idaho. I'm convinced that that was an act of misogyny and that Ethan was just collateral damage. I've always gotten that sense. I'm curious if anybody else has that sense about it. You're so nice to call me smart. Sometimes not. But it's fun to have your brain work, which is why I like having a channel. It's why I like watching stuff. It's why I like taking notes. It's why I like putting it all together. My video yesterday was all about the Gatorade in the Gabby Petito case. And that's a wild rabbit hole that I fully believe in. If you don't know about the Gatorade and the Gabby Petito case, see if you want to watch my video from yesterday. I can talk about it for a minute too, just because I think it's extremely significant. I think a lot of people caught on way back and then people forgot. All these cases, it's so easy to forget, and we're always getting so gaslit. And I am more convinced than ever that Brian Laundrie took the lives of all three: Gabby Petito, Crystal Turner, Kylan Schulte, and not himself. Not himself. I believe that he's, free of all harm, except he might be missing a tooth or something. Okay, good to know it wasn't the Beach Boy. Right, but that Beach Boy hung out with Charles Manson, and he had like a full-time therapist, like who worked for him as his personal therapist, like 24/7, 365. And that therapist, I mean, you can't even call them a therapist. That's not ethical or legal, or, I mean, I guess it's legal, but the guy who called himself his therapist was riding him and scamming him and making all of his business decisions and his music decisions. And it was just really, really sad. Yay, I still have your email. Excellent. Thank you. I know. It's been so long. So Bubbly Waters and I connected on the Idaho 4 case before she started her channel. And she was always giving me and other content creators all of her brilliant ideas. And I would give her a shout out, even though she didn't have a channel, but I don't think all channels did. And so she just started her own channel, and that was awesome. Because, yeah, you've got such a unique voice, Bubbly. Haven't watched Pac-Man in a long time. Yeah, I've only discovered all of these interesting young political guys lately. And then there's Jessica Denson is a political woman who has her own channel, used to be a Trump aide, has filed at least one, if not multiple, lawsuits against Trump, and made a YouTube channel about her lawsuit. She's writing a book about it. She got shadow banned on YouTube. Midas Touch picked her up and gave her a weekly spot. And then she recently just ventured out on her own. And she's only done 2 lives on her own channel. So it's called Jessica Denson. I'll put a link to her. I really like her stuff. I mean, I like the Midas Touch a lot. I think that they separated on positive terms. I like Pac-Man, and there's a whole handful of what I call these old 21-year-old young men. Adam Mockler, not coming to me. What are their names? Jack Conchella or something like that. And then there's a third one, and they're all 21 years old, and they're all brilliant. They all have between like 500,000 and 3-4 million subs. It's pretty cool. Anyway, Annie Ruler, keep an eye open for Hannah down there. I got your email. I didn't know, but I didn't follow many cases before Kylie in the Idaho 4. Yeah, I'm still fighting for Kylie. Still fighting for Kylie. And I'm just so curious how Hannah, her case has reminded me of Kylie's from Jump. Mostly the secrecy, the weirdness, the ex-boyfriends, and now Mexico. She escapes to Mexico. Kylie and her Mexico trip before she disappeared. Kylie and her trigger warning. Her shaved, neatly groomed girl area, the white plastic IUD, the Diva cup. Like that was just way too much information about her southern region. Like, thanks anyway. I mean, come on. What teenage girl in California doesn't have a neatly trimmed bush these days? Again, trigger warning, trigger warning. Like, that was horrible that they put that in the freaking coroner's report, the medical examiner's report. That was too much information, and to me, just perverted. And 16-year-olds don't get IUDs, and IUDs aren't very common in our country. I don't think the white plastic IUDs are a thing in our country, but they are in Mexico, and they are if you have a pregnancy terminated, you don't have an option. They put that in. So, there's always been that scandalous talk about Kylie, and not to jump off the deep end into conspiracy theory land, but maybe there's a thing with Maddie Soto and her cycle and her potential of being pregnant, the tiny little 13-year-old. Maybe there was a thing with Kylie like that, I mean, whether it was from SA or consensual, who knows? I mean, teenagers get pregnant often. Teenagers are very fertile. So even with birth control, they can get pregnant. I mean, anybody can get pregnant with birth control or without, but especially teenagers. Bubbly says it's scary right now. I don't, but I didn't follow many cases. Okay. Bubbly Waters and Jazzy, Michael McAllister. And aren't you up there in New England, Michael? Are you in New Hampshire or something like that? I hate to bow out so soon, but I'm expecting a phone call. You were awesome, and I appreciate you so very much. Women Unite. Well, thank you, Bubbly. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being in the live chat. And yeah, everybody check out Bubbly, Bex and or Shan. If you can put a link to Bubbly Waters' channel in the chat, that would be much appreciated. I'll put a link in the description so that people can check out her work. She does really, really good work. She talks about things that nobody else talks about. She's got some wild ideas, and I think about 99% of them are spot on, in my opinion and in my experience. Hannah may be happy to be off island and escort herself. Who knows? Right. And we don't even know if that was actually the business venture that she was going to New York City for. Who knows? I don't want to be blaming the victim in any sense. If she is a victim, we don't know that she's a victim, but the lack of information about what her or anyone in her family does for income makes me think that they could be part of illicit businesses. And we also don't get any information about where she lived in Maui. Like, did she live by herself? Did she live with her boyfriend? Did she live with her family? Did she rent a room? Did she live in a hut? What's the deal? And why is that information not a thing? Hannah on a bus would be in Cabo in 24 hours. You never know. I mean, for all we know, she's come back into the States since then, and they just haven't revealed that information either. I mean, the whole case is so weird, the way we just get bits and pieces. It's super annoying. It's like another psyops. possibly, in my humble conspiracy theory opinion, allegedly. Bex is in New Hampshire, right? I knew that. I knew that. Michael McAllister, though, is somewhere not too far, I think, just joining. Yes. And I actually forgot you were in New Hampshire. Thanks for reminding me, Bex. Oh, and there you go, bubbly waters. Awesome. I'll put a pin on that. Thank you. Very helpful. Okay, I'm back. So where are you at, Michael McAllister? If you want to share what state you're in. We don't want too much specific information, but if you want to share, it's always fun to know. Thanks, lovely mods and Jazzy. Love ya. Aw, you take care and happy holidays, Bubbly. And yeah, if you want to email me, then I will email you back and have you in my email contacts again. Maddie Sodo asked Scumbag, Bag of Scum, let's just call him Bag of Scum, to buy she and he parent coins for making decisions about their family in a game in December. He slowed going there. Maddie called from party. Bag of Scum got mad, jumped in car to visit. Yeah, thank you for bringing all that up, Annie Ruler. And I was just listening to Ninja Chihuahua's latest drop. She did a part 3 just in the last few hours on her Maddie Soto rundown. And in it, she's talking about the timeline and how things just don't jibe, and how at some point she's talking about how Bag of Scum and Jen Soto, who's also Bag of Scum in my humble opinion, were texting each other. And I wonder if they were texting each other about Maddie's cycle. It was that night. It was the night of the Red Rum. And one of the things that made me think about that is that in interviewing with law enforcement, Jen Soto says about her daughter, Maddie, she never made it to any of her periods. I thought that was so bizarre that she used the word periods instead of classes. She never made it to any of her periods. And she said these are her words, that she told Maddie's friend that she dropped her off close to school, so she should have been there. How bizarre. I dropped her off close to school. You could just say I dropped her off. Like, you don't have to say how many feet from the door you were. Anyway, all that was just a sham. So I have a thing for you guys. I never caught in the Idaho 4 case and all that footage at the grub truck, and maybe you guys did and I just missed it. Kaylee was vaping at the grub truck. I never realized that. Did you guys realize that? I mean, it was so cold that night, everybody could see their breath. It was freezing. It got down to like 25 or 28 degrees that night. It was wicked, wicked cold. But I did not realize that Katie was vaping. I knew that they vaped because that whole story with the vape shop guy talking about them coming in, whether his story was accurate or not, we knew that they went to the vape shop. But I'm wondering if the footage was manipulated so that we wouldn't see her vaping at the grub truck, because I never noticed it until just a few days ago. And it's quick. It's like she's quickly huffing on the vape just for a second. Did you guys notice that? I mean, not that that means anything here or there. I just found it fascinating that in all of the 2 years plus since that happened, I've never seen the footage of her vaping. So red rum that night and never made a period. Wow. I know. Never made a period. Like, didn't make it to any of her periods. Like, what a weird word choice. And that's the problem with lying, is that your brain wants to tell the truth because your brain is trying to make sense of it and put it all together. And so that's why people slip up when they're lying, because the truth slips out. And then especially when people start to say something and then they stop themselves and then they say actually, which Jen Soto did that a lot too. We know that Scammy Smith did that a lot, right? Actually, to tell you the truth, Chris Watts did the to tell you the truth a lot. Or honestly, so yeah, honestly, you're talking to law enforcement. You better be honest. But no, most people when they're talking to law enforcement, if they've committed a crime, of course they're not going to be honest. Like pretty much 100% across the boards, and law enforcement knows that. And that's why law enforcement, it's on them to do their job and know that criminals are going to bald-faced lie to their faces again and again and again. They're probably never going to get the truth, even after a trial, even after a plea agreement. Like the actual truth and what is on paper as far as the case, the disposition of the end result of the case, and the actual real life truth are usually two different stories entirely. But you got to go with what you can prove, what will be admitted to, versus what happened that you can't prove and no one's ever going to admit to it. They blocked some stuff and blurred out parts of the Idaho 4. Yeah, that's pretty wild. Of course they did. Of course they did, huh? Spectrum is acting up. I'm back. Oh no. Oh no. So we just hit an hour. I'm so happy you guys are here. Let's talk for a few more minutes before we wrap up. I think that that's all the stuff I had in my notes. Let me double check. I might have a little bit more. Oh, did I share my whole conspiracy theory about Mickey Stein yesterday, you guys? I think I did, but I might have developed it a little bit more since I made my video. So over the weekend, Mickey Steins is the sheriff in Kentucky who shot his friend, the judge, whose first name was Kevin, not remembering Kevin's last name, shot him dead in his chambers, right? Over the weekend, I learned that last week it came out that Mickey Steins and his wife had been in an argument, a very serious disagreement the night before he shot the judge. And when they had their disagreement, she kicked him out of the house. He wasn't allowed to sleep at home that night. And that put, in my mind, potentially into context when Mickey Stein said they're trying to kidnap my wife and kids. I thought, if they were fighting and she locked him out, she didn't just say, I'm going to go sleep on the couch or I'm leaving. But she didn't want him there with her daughter. She didn't feel safe with him, I'm venturing to guess. She wouldn't let him stay in the house. And there could be domestic violence or there could be a fear of domestic violence, right? Either way, if she was trying to separate herself from him and she was scared of him, she would have asked for help from somebody in a more powerful position than him, since he was the sheriff. And the only person really that might be in a more powerful position than him might be that judge. So, let's see. I just want to get the judge's last name. Kevin Mullins. Okay. Glad I looked that up. That was bothering me. I thought it started with an M, but I didn't know. So anyway, I think that Mickey Stein said the thing about kidnapping within the first 24 hours of being arrested. And up until finding out about the argument that he and his wife had the night before the shooting, it made me think that maybe he was thinking that he was protecting his wife and daughter, right? and that probably that would be his defense, that he thought his wife and daughter were in danger, and so he was protecting them. But then hearing about the fight, the conflict, makes me think that in the event that the wife and daughter were trying to basically plan an escape, an abuser would see anybody coming between them and their victim as a threat, and they would see anybody coming between them and their victim as somebody trying to take away something that they own, right? I mean, abusers are very possessive and controlling. And the daughter was 18. The dad, I think, Mickey Steins, tried to call his daughter. She didn't pick up. He asked the judge for his phone, I think, in the chambers, called from the judge's phone, and then she did pick up. And then subsequently, Mickey Steins put a couple of slugs in the judge, and then extra to make sure that there was no chance of survival. And then he walked out of the judge's chambers and said, you know, arrest me. Please just treat me fairly. So if he thought that his wife and daughter were getting kidnapped, or that people were plotting to kidnap them, then he could look like the hero trying to protect his family. But if he was what the family needed to be protected from, no one's going to have any sympathy for him at all. And he's already in a very bad predicament, having taken the life of a public official in the state of Kentucky. Kentucky, he could definitely be up for the death penalty for capital punishment. So if he has a history of domestic violence, nobody's going to really care about him and his defense, right? The fact that his wife and daughter have laid so low, they haven't come out and publicly supported him, they haven't come out and publicly shamed him, nothing leads me to believe, in my opinion, that it well could be domestic violence. Because in most situations like that, even when the lawyers tell the families don't make any public statements, they can't help but say something like, you know, we love our dad, we are going to stand by him and get him through this. Or, you know, we were afraid of him, and this just goes to show you that we had every reason to be. So I'm highly suspicious that that's the situation. I'm curious if you guys have had any thoughts on that. How was everyone's turkey day? Mine was great. My husband cooked delicious food, and we just had our immediate family. It was kind of small, actually, because both sons were out with their partners. You know, one son is married in the military. The other son went to his girlfriend's house, so that was nice that he was invited. And then it was just me, my husband, our two daughters, and our two dogs, and our three cats. And we had way too much food, but I did really well with not overeating, because I mentioned in one of my lives that I once had a really bad Thanksgiving where I overate to the point that I literally exploded. So that was like 35 years ago, but still, once that happens, you'll just never forget. I think it's one of the only times in my life that I ate so much that I caused that to happen, and it was so not fun. So not fun. And overeating is just really uncomfortable. I mean, we all tend to do it, especially on the holidays, but I find it so delightful when I don't overeat. So I try hard not to. But it is hard because there's so much good stuff. And I was just so grateful that my husband took it upon himself to cook up all this amazing food. He did a fabulous job. And I just made the salad. Nala, come here, baby girl. Kitty, kitty, kitty. You guys never get to see the cats. So, yeah, what do you think about Mickey Steins maybe being in a DV marriage? I'm thinking that that's probably the case. in my opinion. I mean, again, I want to make absolutely clear that that's me jumping to conclusions based on the fact that they had the argument the night before, him and his wife, and that she kicked him out of the house, and then this happened the next day. And the whole thing with the daughter and the phone, and the whole thing with the kidnapping statement. Um, it would be very sad if that were the case, but that just feels like it all fits. So that's where my imagination went with it. And, I feel like I have a pretty good instinct for the nuances of these cases. Like, I never really thought that Hannah had been what they were saying, like abducted and trafficked. But then in the end, I do think that trafficking might well be part of the family enterprise. I don't know. And again, I'm not wanting to blame the victim, but we also don't have her really as a victim of anything, right? I mean, like, why all the hoopla? Was that just for, I asked this question in the live yesterday that nobody could partake in. Was that just for her family members to grow their social media platforms, to get a whole bunch of followers, to make some money with that? Was that so that they could do GoFundMe accounts for missing Hannah? I don't know. I mean, it's like Sherry Papini, right? Sherry Papini did a fake missing thing of herself. That was crazy. And we can't ever forget that Sherry Papini's media specialist, Linda Luschetti, was hired by or volunteered for Kylie Rodney's family on like day 1 or day 2 of her missing. Linda Luschetti, who worked for the Utah Jazz as their concierge, which Lord knows what that really means, other than making sure that everybody has what they need as far as wholesome amenities and comforts. But what else they need? I mean, basketball players are like rock stars. They need a lot of attention, if you know what I mean, from the ladies. They need a lot of lady attention. So I would think that Linda Luschetti was kind of a madam in that sense as the concierge of the Utah Jazz. But Sherry Papini hired her to be her spin doctor for the media when she was busted for faking her own kidnapping. And then that trial had only wrapped up in like June or July of 2022. And then Kylie Rodney disappeared on August 6th of 2022. And then like August 7th or 8th, maybe 9th, maybe at the latest, Lindsay goes and hires her, or she just jumps in and volunteers to work for the family for free. Not to mention the whole thing with SF Investigates and his hands in Kylie Rodney's case still to this day, according to him. Like, why, if it was just a drunk driving car accident, why in the world would they still need you on the case, man? Like, thanks for the information. All right. And then he was on this Hannah thing too until he decided that he thought it was an invasion of her privacy because she went missing on her own accord by choice, which might be true, but it's hard to trust anything that guy says. Another bag of scum, in my humble opinion. And, if he wants to come at me, then so be it. I just think that you got to call a spade, and I definitely think he's a spade. So, BoobTube says, hey, Jazzy, Snazzy Jazzy, I like your lid flipped backward. Yes, I've been scared to drive now. Where are we at? Yeah, I only wore a hat, backwards hat, when I finally found one in my house a few days ago. It was the first time I wore one. Then I was having trouble finding another one today. I have like 20 or 50 hats, but I couldn't find one of the backwards ones. Then I finally found one of the backwards ones, so I thought I'd do it again. I just always like to make that joke. My whole life I've been like that. When I see a friend wearing a backwards hat, I'm like, that's so cool. Where'd you find a backwards hat like that? So anyway, I'm just weird like that. You know me. Mullins, Sheriff Mullins. Yes, yes, yes. The day before Thanksgiving, I was driving my brother's truck and the gas pedal got stuck. And OMG, I thought I was going to unalive, but I'm still here and thank the God I came really close. I am so happy to hear that. Yeah, I hit a tinge of black ice the other night. I think it was like the day before Thanksgiving. But yeah, black ice is no fun at all. And it scared the bejesus out of me too. I'm glad you're okay. That is crazy. Gas pedal got stuck. Ah, that's a nightmare. Um, yes, you are so correct, Jazz, about SF. I just don't like trash talking people, but I think that he needs to be trash talked. I don't understand why he puts himself out in the streets of YouTube, except that he's trying to manipulate and spin doctor. And, you know, he's all like, oh, I'm just a guy that cares a lot and volunteers to go looking for missing people because I've got such a big heart. It's like, not thinking that's accurate. Thinking that's the opposite of truth right there. So, all right, you guys, I concur, BoobTube says. Well, thank you, my dear. Um, yeah, I was going to wrap. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about before we do? Glad nothing serious happened to Michael. Yeah, I know. That is so scary. So very scary. Everybody be super careful. Always. I mean, it's crazy how just the most innocuous things can be so dangerous. What was it that dropped onto my toe before I came on live? It was like something little and light that kind of hurt. Because I'm always like, you know, how many times do we drop our cell phones when we have bare feet? And that cell phone could hit you right on the top of the foot and really mess you up. But something much smaller than a cell phone fell, it hit my toe, and I was like, man, that could have really done some damage. So, yeah, I guess the point of that story is wear shoes, right? Which reminds me of something that I just saw in the last 24 hours online. RFK Jr. deep frying a turkey, pulling it up out of the deep fat fryer with a freaking wire hanger. This giant, like 30 or what looked like a 30 or 40-pound turkey, a skinny wire hanger, which, you know, reminds you of an abortion. And he's like out on his back patio with his pants rolled up to his knees and bare feet. And he's got this vat of hot oil and he's letting the hot oil drip off the turkey. And I'm just like, what kind of rocket scientist are you? Like, are you just like begging to go to the ER on Thanksgiving? And oh Lord, how weird. Like bare feet, like you don't even cook bacon with short sleeves if you're really smart, right? But a vat of turkey and a giant turkey that like barely fit into the vat. Like the vat was not much wider than the turkey. And then to be pulling it up with a wire freaking hanger. It's what you call you know, the evolution of survival of the fittest, right? I'll just leave it at that. Thank you so very much. And yes, the gas pedal was all the way down and I was going over 70 miles per hour and finally came to a stop. And thank God and God bless everyone. Amen. Wow. I've never had a gas pedal get stuck. I've had like the little tiny dog go under my feet when I'm driving and that being super dangerous. Thank you so much, everyone, for the great blessings. Amen. And thank you very much. Absolutely, Michael. Absolutely. And for everyone, love and light and prayers and safety for everyone. Yeah. Have a lovely rest of your afternoon. Is it only 1:07? Well, I did get started before noon, didn't I? That's phenomenal. I always want to get started before noon just so I can say good morning, but I think I forgot to say it today. I don't know. Did I say it? Anyway. Adios, Annie. Yeah, thanks so much for being here, everyone. Take really good care of yourself. Just be yourself. Be true to yourself. Find your voice, whatever that is. And to quote AJR, that band that I love so much, just be the biggest version of yourself that you can be. I thought that was a very interesting message. Yes. All right, you guys. Peace out. Love and light. Drink your water, eat your veggies, protein, get your rest, and just be. That's the most important part, is just being. To be or not to be. Thanks again for watching. See you soon.